From the Turner Diaries to Camp of the Saints to QAnon, this is how you end up with armed people trying to kidnap a governor. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. I am of the opinion that the reason why Mike Lee and other right-wing Republicans, and you will hear this all over the dial if you tune in to right-wing hate radio, are saying that the United States is a republic, not a democracy, is not some arcane debate about what James Madison said back in the 1770s or the 1790s. What it is, plain, simple, right on its face, right in front of us, is Mike Lee and the Republicans preparing us for Donald Trump stealing the election. And saying, you know, we're a republic. We operate under the rules, and the rules say the Electoral College picks, and the Constitution says that Pennsylvania can choose to put Trump and Pence back into office, even if the majority of voters in Pennsylvania say no. And Pennsylvania's legislature has actually created a commission to do just that. And there's other states that are looking at it. And this is no longer a secret. It's being reported, like, you know, in mainstream media. So, anyhow, I just, you know, want to be very, very clear about that, you know, that you get what's going on here, because the stakes are really, really high. Laura in Linwood, Washington. Hey, Laura, what's up?
Well, the gentleman that was on a little while ago talking about the Christians that believe that God made Trump be president, I want to take the story a little further. I had some friends in an apartment building that I was living with, very good friends and good hard workers. We did a lot of stuff, you know, with events and things in our apartment building. And they kept trying to get me to come to their Bible study classes that they had. And one day, one of them told me that when Trump was conceived, God had already divined him to be the Antichrist, and that they were going to vote for him because that was a good thing to do, because God wanted it, because the world is coming to an end. And therefore, they will be Trump heads and not worry. They won't have to worry about any of these poor people that are in cages down in Mexico and Texas, or all the people that are starving or anything like that, because they're on their way to heaven. And they couldn't understand why I just couldn't believe that. I said to them, I said, I don't think my God did that. I don't know what God you believe in. And they said, we'll pray for you, to me. And 2 months later, I moved. I couldn't stand to be around them. And
this is not really new, Laura. I'm sorry, finish your thought.
That's all right. They're kind, gentle people, you know, and I can't believe how they could just, I mean, it's okay. Everything that's going on is okay, because they're going to go to heaven pretty soon. You know, they're going to, it'll be over with this world.
This is not new, Laura. This kind of thinking has been around for quite some time. It really gained a foothold in the American consciousness, and Western European too, for that matter, in the late 1800s. There was this huge religious revival in the 1870s, 1880s, and early 1890s, out of which came the Seventh-day Adventist movement, Ellen White, who said the world is going to end, and, you know, took her flock up to the top of the mountain to watch the world end, and it didn't happen, and so she kind of reinvented the religion. It brought us the Jehovah's Witnesses. There are a number of smaller sects in Christianity that emerged out of that, and kind of laid the foundation for things like, you know, Hal Lindsey's 1972, I think it was, book, The Late Great Planet Earth, in which he's saying that, you know, biblical prophecy means that we're in the end days and all this kind of thing. And in fact, in the 1980s, when James Watt was the Interior Secretary under Ronald Reagan, right now our Interior Secretary is a guy who used to be a coal lobbyist. He's selling off our public lands just like James Watt was. And James Watt was selling off federal public lands to mining and drilling interests for pennies on the dollar. These guys were making an absolute killing and pouring contributions into the Republican Party. And a reporter cornered James Watt and said, you're despoiling America. You're ruining our national lands. Why would you do that? And James Watts said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's easy enough to find the exact quote. He said, we're on the verge of the rapture. And when Jesus returns, he's going to make all things new. So it doesn't matter what we do to the earth, because Jesus is going to make it all pristine once again. And that kind of thinking is exactly what you're describing there, Laura. I'm hearing two stories from Christians, from befuddled, deluded Christians about Donald Trump. The first is the story that you're telling, which is he's actually the bad guy. And he's here to screw things up, because you've got to have that war. You've got to have that war that starts in Armageddon before you can have the return of Jesus. And then the other, and that's not the most common story among Christians, but it's out there. The more common one is the King Cyrus story. King Cyrus was, I believe, a Persian, an Iranian king who took in the Jews when they were being persecuted, and didn't try to convert them. They didn't convert him, and so he was never one of us kind of thing, or even explicitly on our side, but he protected people through the process. And so what they're saying is, yeah, Donald Trump is not a moral man. He's not a Christian. He's an adulterer. He's a thief. He's broken virtually every one of the 10 Commandments. He doesn't read the Bible. He doesn't even, 2 Thessalonians, really, that kind of thing. But he may be an SOB, but he's our SOB. He's our King Cyrus. And both of those stories, I think, are just incredibly destructive. And it's so unfortunate they're being promoted. And then now you add a third one to that, which is the whole QAnon thing, which is also claiming to be rooted in Christianity, saying that, there's Hollywood celebrities and Democrats who are eating children, drinking their blood. This is the old story, literally, that was in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was written in 1902 by Czar Nicolas's intelligence services to provide an excuse for Czar Nicolas to crack down on Jewish moneylenders and bankers in Russia in 1902, and it's just, and they were in many cases presenting some of the opposition to him, to the extent that it was, and that's what Hitler used. I mean, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, Hitler required it. He republished it. It had to be read by school children. There were movies about it. And it basically said the Jews are eating children. They're taking the blood of children and using it to make matzah, which they use for the high holy holidays. And this has been reprised, reinvented with a patina of last days-ness to it, as part of the QAnon conspiracy. And we got some really toxic stuff going on here. And Laura, thank you for the call and for highlighting that. The point that I think the larger point here is people are wondering, why have we gone nuts, right? Why is this happening? And I think it's a very straightforward answer, and it's what I quoted Tucker Carlson earlier as pointing out, that America has become unbalanced. That is to say, the rich are obscene. The top 1% own 79.3% of all the wealth in America. The bottom half of us own 1.5% of the wealth in America. And when that happens, when people feel like, hey, I should have a good life. My dad had a good life. He worked at a tool and die shop for 40 years. He retired. He owned his own home. He took vacation. Why can't I have that? When people are asking that question, the easy answer is, because somebody did it to you. Because there's some group out there that's conspiring against you. And the story that Donald Trump told white American voters was, it's brown people. It's immigrants who are stealing your job. That's who it is. So we should put their children in cages. And back when it was Ronald Reagan was saying, oh, it's black people. Reagan said, doesn't it, I'm paraphrasing, but you can look up his quote, doesn't it infuriate you when you're standing in line at the supermarket, with the money that you've carefully saved, and right in front of you is some big young buck, which was his phrase for a black man, buying beer and pretzels, or I forget exactly what he described, but it was, not veggies and fruit, with his food stamps. And then Reagan went off on his welfare queen thing about the black woman who had the Cadillac and had 100 different Social Security accounts, which didn't exist. But when people feel like they are getting the short end of the stick, and middle class, working class people in America have been getting the short end of the stick for 40 years now as a consequence of Reaganomics, they don't look at large structural issues like, hey, did somebody change how our economy works? No, instead they look at groups of people. Oh, it's them. And the QAnon people are saying, oh, it's Democrats.